Humanity didn't fight the galactic order, they simply walked away, leaving the Council to collapse under the weight of its own arrogance. The great spires of the Galactic Council stretched toward the artificial stars of Station Nexus, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the light of 1,000 worlds. For 3 millennia, this had been the beating heart of interstellar civilization, a place where disputes were resolved through diplomacy, trade flowed freely between species, and the rule of law prevailed over the chaos of the void. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the towering podium of the High Council chamber, her modest human frame dwarfed by the imposing alien delegates surrounding her. The Zephyrian Chancellor's crystalline body chimed with disapproval, while the slug-like mollusk hierarchy representative oozed contempt from his environmental tank. The insectoid hive queen's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights like 1,000 tiny suns, each one cold and calculating. Chancellor Vrix's voice resonated like wind chimes in a hurricane as he spoke. The human petition is amusing. Your species wishes to establish mining operations in the Kepler sector, a region clearly designated as a protected archaeological zone by Council Resolution 7442. The answer, as it has been for the past 17 requests, is no. Ambassador Chen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Behind her calm diplomatic mask, something dangerous stirred. Chancellor, with respect, humanity has provided critical services to this council for over 2 centuries. We've defended trade routes, shared our medical advances freely, and asked for very little in return. The Kepler sector contains resources essential for our expanding colonies. The mollusk representative, Administrator Gorth, expelled a bubble of disdain. Humans always want more territory, more resources, more influence. Your species has been given far more consideration than your brief membership warrants. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement from the assembled delegates. The reptilian Conquer.'s representative nodded his scaled head in approval, while the machine beings of the synthetic collective processed the discussion with cold algorithmic precision. Queen Zix-Ka of the hive clicked her mandibles and passed for laughter among her kind. Perhaps the humans need to be reminded of their place in the galactic order. They are newcomers here, barely evolved beyond their primitive warfare, when most of us had already achieved interstellar civilization. Ambassador Chen stood perfectly still for a long moment, her hands clasped behind her back. When she finally spoke, her voice carried an odd quality, too calm, too controlled. I see. And what, exactly, do you consider to be humanity's place in this galactic order? Chancellor? Vrix's crystalline form pulsed with satisfied energy. Support species, resource providers, perhaps security contractors for the more dangerous sectors where civilized beings prefer not to venture. Your kind seems particularly suited to violence. After all, the words hung in the air like a toxin. Ambassador Chen's diplomatic smile never wavered, but something shifted in her eyes, something that would later haunt the dreams of every being in that chamber. I understand completely, she said, her voice carrying an eerie serenity. Thank you for clarifying humanity's position within the council structure. I believe we have all the information we need. What happened next defied every precedent in galactic diplomatic history. Ambassador Chen didn't argue. She didn't threaten. She didn't even raise her voice. Instead, she simply bowed slightly, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both respect and something far more unsettling. The United Earth Federation acknowledges the Council's decision. We will, of course, comply with all regulations and withdraw our petition immediately. Her words were perfectly measured, perfectly professional. If there's nothing else requiring humanity's input today, I'll take my leave. She turned and walked toward the exit with unhurried steps, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. At the threshold, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. Oh, and Chancellor Vrix, please don't consider this a goodbye. We'll be in touch soon to discuss the termination of various arrangements. The massive doors sealed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the council chamber in an uncomfortable silence. Several delegates shifted uneasily in their seats, though none could quite articulate why the humans' calm acceptance felt more ominous than any tantrum would have been. Within hours, the first signs began to appear across the galaxy. Human trade. Vessels that had been traveling established routes for decades simply stopped. Not dramatically, they completed their current deliveries, honored existing contracts to the letter, and then quietly returned to human space. The Zephyrian trade consortium noticed it first when their luxury goods shipments to the Outer Rim colonies suddenly had no carriers. Humans had been handling the dangerous routes through pirate-infested space for so long that other species had simply stopped maintaining ships capable of the journey. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead researcher at the Galactic Medical Institute's Xenobiology Division, submitted his resignation with 2 weeks' notice. So did every other human scientist, engineer, and support staff member across Council space. Their replacements would need months of training to understand research projects that humans had been conducting for years. Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the UEF destroyer Concordia received a priority message as her ship patrolled the volatile outer sector. All human vessels are to return to Earth Federation space immediately. Effective immediately, the UEF is withdrawing from all mutual defense agreements with Council species. She stared at the message for a long moment, then keyed her comm system. Helm, set course for Sol. Best possible speed. Her tactical officer, a young lieutenant named Harrison, looked confused. Captain, what about the trade convoy we're escorting? They're still 6 hours from the safety corridor. Captain Rodriguez's expression hardened. Not our problem anymore. Lieutenant, the Council has made their position clear. We're just muscle for hire. Well, our contract just expired, 3 days after Ambassador Chen's departure. Chancellor Vrix received an urgent communication from his homeworld. The message was brief and terrifying. Crystal Mining Consortium reports complete halt in rare earth deliveries. Human contractors have terminated all agreements. Alternative suppliers demanding triple previous rates. Economic projections catastrophic. Similar messages were flooding in from across Council space. The mollusk hierarchy's administrator discovered that their delicate bioships, which required constant maintenance using human-developed adaptive technologies, were beginning to show system failures. The replacement parts they'd always taken for granted were suddenly unavailable. Queen Zixka of the Hive faced perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. Her species' expansion into hostile environments had relied heavily on human terraforming techniques. Without human engineers, 3 new colony worlds would become uninhabitable within months, but it was the synthetic collective that delivered the news that made the Council's blood or synthetic equivalent run cold. Their emotionless representative, designation Prime 7, spoke in its characteristic monotone. Analysis complete. Human species provides 23.7% of Council's technical expertise, 41.2% of dangerous sector operations, 67.8% of military protection services, and 89.4% of rapid response emergency support. Conservative estimates indicate complete societal collapse. Within 2.3 standard years without human cooperation, the numbers were staggering, but even more unsettling was what the humans weren't doing. There were no angry ultimatums, no threats of retaliation, no demands for better treatment. They were simply gone, like ghosts fading at dawn. Humanity had withdrawn from galactic civilization with barely a whisper. Emergency sessions were called, but every attempt to contact human leadership met with the same polite, automated response. The United Earth Federation is currently reviewing its galactic commitments. Please direct all inquiries to local system authorities. Administrator Gorth, his slug-like form trembling with barely contained panic, finally voiced what everyone was thinking. They're not coming back, are they? Chancellor Vrix's crystalline body had lost its earlier luminous confidence. Surely, they're bluffing. No species abandoned centuries of civilization over a simple mining dispute. Perhaps, Queen Zixka replied, her compound eyes reflecting a new understanding. We never understood what we were dealing with. The first colony to fall was Kepler-4 to be, a marginal world that had been terraformed using human technology. When the atmospheric processors began failing, the colonists sent desperate pleas for help. The human response was swift and professional. We regret that UEF technical support is no longer available for Council territories. We recommend contacting local authorities for assistance. Local authorities had no idea how to repair machines they'd never bothered to understand. The Zephyrin luxury trade collapsed within weeks. The crystalline beings had grown dependent on exotic goods from the galaxy's most dangerous region's goods that only human crews had been brave or foolish enough to retrieve. Alternative suppliers either couldn't reach these locations or demanded payment that would bankrupt entire systems. Pirate attacks increased by 400% in the Outer Rim. Human patrol ships had been the backbone of interstellar security for so long that other species had allowed their own military capabilities to atrophy. The few non-human vessels that attempted to fill the gap were either outgunned by the pirates or simply refused to take the risks that humans had considered routine. Dr. Yara Singh, formerly of the Galactic Medical Institute, now working in a human research facility, watched the news feeds with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. Plague outbreaks on 3 Council worlds were spreading unchecked because the techniques for rapid vaccine development had been pioneered by human researchers. The knowledge existed, but the expertise to apply it had departed with the humans. There, calling us every hour, her former colleague, Dr. Kathar of the Feline Consortium, had messaged her, "Please, Yara, people are dying." Dr. Singh's response was professionally courteous. "I sympathize with your situation, Dr. Kathar. However, I'm no longer authorized to provide consultation to Council territories. I'm sure your own researchers will develop solutions in time." The message she didn't send was the one that burned in her heart. "You told us we were just support species. Well, now you get to support yourselves." The breaking point came when the Nexus station itself began experiencing critical system failures. The massive space station had been expanded and upgraded dozens of times over the centuries, with each addition requiring integration of technologies from multiple species. The humans had served as the universal translators of engineering, the ones who could make Zephyrin crystal tech work with mollusk biosystems and synthetic quantum processors. Now, as cascading failures spread through the station's networks, the remaining human technicians received the same message that had gone out across the galaxy: return to Earth Federation space immediately. All technical support contracts terminated. Chief Engineer Patel looked around the command center that had been his life's work for 23 years. "Sorry, folks," he told his multi-species team. "New orders. The Federation is recalling all personnel." His reptilian assistant, Engineer Sksk, stared at him in disbelief. "But the quantum stabilizers will fail without your oversight. The entire station could." "I know," Patel said quietly, gathering his personal belongings. "Good luck." Emergency council sessions ran around the clock as the full scope of the catastrophe became clear. Species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence just weeks before were now begging for an audience with any human representative. Chancellor Vrix, his once proud crystalline form now dim with desperation, made the call that would haunt him for the rest of his extended lifespan. "Get Emmy Ambassador Chen. Any frequency. Any price." The response came through official diplomatic channels, but the voice wasn't Chen's. Instead, a crisp, professional human voice delivered a message that chilled the chamber. "Ambassador Chen has been reassigned to domestic affairs. The United Earth Federation regrets that we have no available representatives for council consultations at this time. This is madness." Administrator Gorth's tank bubbled with agitation. "They can't simply abandon galactic civilization. The economic disruption alone will what?" Queen Zixka interrupted, her mandibles clicking with bitter realization. "Hurt us. They know that. They're counting on it." The synthetic collective's representative offered the most disturbing analysis of all. "Probability assessment indicates Human action is not emotional response, but calculated strategic withdrawal. Their behavior patterns suggest long-term planning. They have been preparing for this moment. The truth was beginning to sink in. Humanity hadn't stormed out in a fit of rage. They had walked away with the cold precision of a species that had carefully evaluated their options and chosen the most devastating response possible. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human colonies were thriving, their technology advancing at an unprecedented rate now that they were no longer sharing their innovations freely. Human trade vessels had been replaced by sleek new designs that made even the most advanced council ships look primitive by comparison. Most disturbing of all were the intelligence reports about human military developments. The species that the council had dismissed as particularly suited to violence was apparently taking that assessment to heart. Deep space monitors detected massive construction projects in human space shipyards on a scale that dwarfed anything. In Council territory, they're building a fleet. Admiral Kresh of the Reptilian Navy reported, his scales pale with concern. Based on energy signatures, we estimate at least 3,000 vessels, all using technology we don't recognize. Chancellor Vrix's voice cracked as he asked the question that terrified them all. Are they preparing for war? Unknown, the Admiral replied, but given their recent behavior, I don't think they care whether we know or not. 6 months after humanity's silent departure, the Galactic Council faced a reality that none of them had imagined possible. The greatest interstellar civilization in known history was crumbling, not from external invasion or natural disaster, but from the absence of a species they had considered insignificant. Station Nexus operated at 30% capacity, its critical systems held together by increasingly desperate patches and workarounds. 3 council species faced complete economic collapse. 17 colony worlds had been abandoned due to failing infrastructure. Pirate activity had increased so dramatically that entire sectors had become no-go zones. But perhaps most terrifying of all was the complete silence from human space. No threats, no demands, no communication at all. It was as if humanity had simply written off the rest of the galaxy as a failed experiment. Ambassador Chen finally agreed to one last meeting, but not on Nexus Station. Instead, she invited a small delegation of council representatives to a neutral system at the edge of human space. The location itself was a message they would meet on humanity's terms or not at all. Chancellor Vrix, Administrator Gorth, and Queen Zix-Ka arrived at the designated coordinates aboard a hastily repaired council vessel, its jury-rigged systems, a stark reminder of how much they had depended on human technical expertise. What they found waiting for them defied belief. The human ship was unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, predatory, and radiating power from every line. Its weapon systems alone could have vaporized their entire delegation without effort. Ambassador Chen greeted them in a meeting room that was somehow both luxurious and intimidating. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 months earlier, but something fundamental had changed. The diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by something far more honest and infinitely more dangerous. Gentlemen, Your Majesty, she said with perfect courtesy, I understand you have something you'd like to discuss. Chancellor Vrix's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. Ambassador, surely we can reach some accommodation. The current situation benefits no one. Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Oh, I disagree completely. Humanity is doing quite well, actually. Our technology has advanced more in the past 6 months than in the previous decade. Our economy is booming. Our military has never been stronger. From our perspective, the situation is working out perfectly. Administrator Gorth's tank bubbled with desperate urgency. But the galaxy is falling apart. Entire civilizations are collapsing. Yes, Chen replied with clinical detachment. That does appear to be happening. Of course, we did warn you this might occur, but the council felt our concerns were ... What was the phrase? Amusing. Queen Zix-Ka leaned forward, her compound eyes reflecting the ambient light like tiny stars. What do you want? Resources? Territory? Representation? Chen laughed, and the sound held no warmth whatsoever. Your Majesty, 6 months ago, we would have been thrilled with mining rights to a single sector. Now, she gestured toward the viewport, where human ships could be seen patrolling the system with casual efficiency. Now we have all the resources we need. Territory we're taking at our discretion, and representation. Well, we've decided we prefer governing ourselves. The implications hit the delegation like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't seeking to rejoin the galactic community, they were replacing it. The meeting continued for hours, but the fundamental dynamic never changed. The council representatives pleaded, bargained, and threatened by turns, while Ambassador Chen listened with the patience of someone holding all the cards. You have to understand, Chancellor Vrix's voice had lost all its earlier crystalline authority. Without human cooperation, billions will die. Entire species face extinction. Chen nodded sympathetically. That is indeed unfortunate. Of course, when we raised similar concerns about our own needs, the Council's response was to remind us that we were merely a support species. I assume you have other support species available to handle these challenges. The silence stretched until Queen Zixka finally spoke, her proud voice reduced to a whisper. There are no other support species. There never were. It was always just humans. Chen replied with false understanding. So, when you classified us as a support species, what you really meant was that we were the only species capable of supporting galactic civilization. How fascinating. I wish you had explained that more clearly during our previous discussions. Administrator Dorth's desperation finally boiled over. What will it take? Name your price. Anything. Full council membership. Territorial concessions. Technology sharing agreements. Anything. For the first time since the meeting began, Chen's expression showed genuine emotion, but it wasn't satisfaction or greed. It was something far more chilling. It was pity. You still don't understand, do you? She said softly. This isn't about price. This isn't a negotiation. 6 months ago, humanity offered to be your partner. You made it clear that you preferred us as your servants. We've simply chosen a third option, which is? Chancellor Vrix asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Chen stood, signaling that the meeting was over. Independence. Complete, total, permanent independence from a galactic community that never saw us as equals. We're not rejoining the Council. We're not renegotiating our relationship. We're building something new, something better, something that doesn't require the approval of species who mistake age for wisdom and arrogance for strength. She walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and before you leave, I should mention this is the last diplomatic contact humanity will have with the Council. From now on, any ships entering human space without explicit permission will be turned away. Those who refuse to leave will be destroyed. We've tried cooperation, and we've tried withdrawal. Now we're trying isolation. The delegation sat in stunned silence as the implication sank in. Humanity wasn't just leaving the galactic community, they were actively rejecting it. But the trade routes, Queen Zixka stammered. The shared technology, the mutual defense agreements, centuries of cooperation, built on a foundation of condescension and exploitation, Chen replied without turning around. We're done being your unpaid servants. If you want human assistance in the future, you'll have to earn it the same way. We earned your contempt through centuries of patient effort and demonstrated value. The door sealed behind her with a finality that echoed across the galaxy. 5 years later, the galaxy had settled into a new and uncomfortable equilibrium. The Galactic Council still existed, but its influence had shrunk to a shadow of its former scope. Without human technical expertise, military protection, and economic support, the great interstellar civilization had fragmented into smaller, more manageable regional coalitions. Some species had adapted better than others. The synthetic collective, with their computational abilities, had managed to reverse engineer some human technologies. The reptilian concordat had rebuilt their military capabilities and now controlled several former council sectors. The Zephyrians had retreated to their core worlds, their crystal spires dim but unbroken. Others had not been so fortunate. The mollusk hierarchy's bioships had proven impossible to maintain without human biotechnology, forcing them into an increasingly isolated existence. Several minor species had simply vanished from interstellar affairs, their colonies abandoned or absorbed by more successful neighbors. And humanity. Humanity thrived in their isolation like a flower finally given proper soil. Their technology had advanced at an exponential rate, unencumbered by the need to share every breakthrough with species who contributed little in return. Their ships now patrolled expanding sphere of influence that encompassed dozens of systems, all of them closed to outside contact. Occasionally, long-range sensors would detect human vessels at the edges of known space, sleek and powerful ships that vanished the moment they realized they had been observed. These sightings became the subject of countless intelligence reports and fevered speculation. Were the humans exploring beyond the galactic rim? Were they preparing for eventual expansion into council space? Were they simply ensuring that their isolation remained complete? Nobody knew, and that uncertainty had become the defining characteristic of the post-human galaxy. Former Chancellor Vrix, now political exile on a backwater world, spent his days reviewing the transcripts of that final meeting. The words that haunted him most weren't the threats or ultimatums those he could have understood. Instead, it was Ambassador Chen's quiet observation, "We've chosen a third option." He finally understood what she had meant. Humanity hadn't chosen to fight the galactic order or submit to it. They had chosen to ignore it entirely, to build something new while the old system collapsed under its own contradictions. In the end, the greatest victory wasn't achieved through conquest or negotiation. It was achieved through the simple act of walking away and proving that galactic civilization needed humanity far more than humanity needed galactic civilization. The Council had taught humanity their place in the galactic order. Humanity had responded by rejecting that order entirely and building their own. And in the vast silence of space between the stars, the sound of human laughter echoed through the void, not bitter or angry, but filled with the joy of a species that had finally learned to value itself. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity couldn't care less.